have this new segment on the podcast called Higher Edification. The reason I do this segment, as you heard from the first interview, is, and you did listen to the first interview with James Winfield, but the reason that I do it is I like to find the connection between higher education and personal leadership. You know me, I love higher education. And I just happen to be married to someone who also loves higher education. This wasn't quite on my bingo card, by the way, about 20 years ago. But, um, well, I mean, no, I just never saw myself getting this much into higher education. No, not you, not you. You were always to be. And so it hit me one day that this is something we do need to talk about. And so I'm really, really curious about how you see the connection between higher education and personal leadership, especially with colleges and universities being civic anchors. So let's start right there.
Mhm.
What does that even mean? No, I mean when you say an institution is a civic anchor, what does that mean?
So, an anchor institution, very straightforward, is an institution or organization that is a central part of any community or any society. It is a part of the resilience, the stability, the growth. When you think about hospitals, when you think about libraries, when you think about even some civic organizations or some social organizations, those are anchors, right? They hold the community together. They hold you just like an anchor, holds the community down and provides a foundation, right? Um, Civic anchors are usually long-standing, so they've been around for multiple generations, in some cases, multiple centuries. They provide critical elements of whatever that community or society needs, or a city or town needs. So they usually provide a service, or they provide a core function to whatever the community is. So when you talk about it being as plain as the nose on your face, it's literally the things that we see every day. Those are the institutions and organizations and spaces that we interact with on a daily basis that we basically can't necessarily imagine any given place existing without. My research and work and teaching has lived at kind of the intersection of all of those things. So when you look at public administration and public service, you see the interplay of government policy, nonprofit organizations, philanthropy, corporate organizations, and you start to see these long-standing relationships that have been historically kind of levers that are pulled for addressing whatever the needs of that community are. So when you look at places like New Orleans, for example, and when you look at things like the Katrina recovery, there was a look to the anchors to be a key part of recovery and rebuilding for the community, because they had the resources, or because they had a body of assets that could be utilized for the advancement and the goodwill of the community. So that encapsulates, or I think that captures my perspective on civic anchors. I tend to see them in a very broad perspective. So it's not just economic development, which is an area where people typically situate that conversation. So how many jobs are you creating, and those kinds of things. I also look at it in terms of social anchoring. So if you think about a family, it's kind of the holder of the recipes, whoever maybe your big mama figure is that's your anchor, because that is that person, that connection is very much a defining force for you. So when I talk about anchor organizations or anchor institutions, I'm thinking pretty broadly. in that perspective. So.
Okay. In terms of higher education, I mean, you mentioned New Orleans. And so in New Orleans, we have Tulane, right? Tulane has a hospital. Tulane is doing real estate development downtown and has been for a while. But then also you think about, I think in simple terms, you also think about, you think about, and if you hear anything in the background, it's because today just happens to be heavy equipment day outside of Studio E. Um, but you also think about that in terms of, how many pizza shops might open up in the neighborhood, or something on my radio show when I've interviewed the presidents of Southeast Louisiana. One of the questions I've asked them is about how their alumni have contributed, how many alumni stay in the area and become our doctors and our lawyers and our business people and our educators and that sort of thing. So, I mean, so that in terms of higher education, um, that's a pretty simple look at it, right? It's part of it.
It's part of it. It's a I don't want to say simple, I would say straightforward.
Okay.
So within higher ed, a lot of times the conversation around civic anchors centers on economic impact. So when you look at
the heavy equipment, here's something heavy.
Economic impact. So when you look at a place like New Orleans, we have several significant universities and colleges that operate, and that runs the gamut. So from community college to Research One institutions, and pretty much most things in between. So Tulane, they released an economic impact report. I think they do it annually. The last one of the stats that they threw out, and I'm looking at data from this report because I want to get it right. The 2024 report noted the annual economic impact in the state of Louisiana from Tulane at $5.2 billion. And that includes things like procurement, real estate, business that it brings to the state, to the and to the city as well. Tulane, throughout the state of Louisiana, reported 30,300 jobs in that same report. So that was those are the amount of jobs, and it's not necessarily a direct reflection of how many people Tulane employs in the state, but those are jobs supported. So people that Tulane might contract with, in addition to people that the university employs. Looking directly at the city of New Orleans, the economic impact was reported at $2.3 billion and 17,260 jobs. When you look at a similar report that was done by the United Negro College Fund on the economic impact of historically Black colleges and universities, they noted that HBCUs generate $16.5 billion in economic impact across their regional economies, and similarly 136,000 jobs across their local and regional economies. So very quickly you start to see these institutions, and that's not even getting into the policy work that they do. That's not even getting into the alumni who graduate from those institutions and remain in their cities or in those communities, which
and the research that contributes to the local communities.
Right, the research that contributes. So places like Dillard and Tulane and Xavier, very active in UNO, SUNO, very active in things like medical research, medical practice, social work, industries,
the arts.
Oh my goodness, the arts, environmental management. So very quickly you see that it's more than a university building a hospital somewhere, right? And that's part of it too. So if you look at like where I'm from, North Carolina, we have Wake Forest University, a major medical center built in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, around that institution. If you go a few miles out or a little ways out to the Raleigh-Durham area, you have Duke University, NC State, Carolina, North Carolina Central, and some other schools. So the work that those schools do, the work that their communities do, so their faculty, their students, their and then some of the strategic priorities of the institutions themselves play into pretty much everything that happens in those communities, for better or for worse. I like to tell the story of North Carolina A&T and many other HBCUs that were where students were involved in the civil rights movement and moving those movements forward. We recently visited Nashville. You have Fisk University there. Those student activists, they played a major role in achieving things like integration, in specifically in their communities, but on a national scale. So the role that colleges and universities play in contributing to the civic well-being and advancement of any given community and on a national scale, I think it's underexplored, because it's so obvious. Like it's just one of those things that we don't always dig deeply into in trying to really understand it and quantify it and study it. So that gives you a sense of the importance, I think, of engaging in in this conversation and really thinking about, as a community, how do we leverage that? How do we work together with our colleges and universities? How do we uh, include our colleges and universities in those important conversations when we're starting to think about the resilience and the sustainability of our communities?
All right, hold your horses, because you started answering like the last question that I have here. I'm joking. You're listening to For Our Edification, by the way. I'm Eddie Francis, and Dr. Halima Francis, the partner in crime, is hanging out. And I'm curious about this. As someone who has done higher ed marketing and communications, who has worked with institutions, a couple of institutions that were having some reputational challenges, how much does reputation come into play in this conversation? The reputation of the institution?
Reputation always matters. However, when you're talking about anchors and so when you're talking about the connection between the institution and the community, and what they contribute to the community, the reputation is relational and it develops over time. So if you have an institution that has a reputation of not being a good neighbor, right? Then you're going to get into some what they call town and gown, some negative town and gown interactions and just thoughts and attitudes, or you'll see people or you'll hear people say, well, that institution isn't really for us as locals. And that is a historic, reputational issue that I think a lot of colleges and universities have to learn how to navigate.
I'm sorry. I just started thinking about Samuel L. Jackson in School Days. You come down here with your education.
And that's exactly, yes, that's exactly, yeah.
But that happens.
That happens. Like there's resentment that's built up, and I do think that colleges and universities have to do a better job of that, because a lot of times the way that they are structured and the things that we value as colleges and universities and our systems, especially when you're dealing with elite institutions, it's, our admissions rate is low. So a low admissions rate at some point is going to take you to a place of exclusion, and you have to define who your valued populations are, right? So that can develop some reputational challenges and hazards for institutions. Likewise, if you have an institution that has a very strong reputation of providing education access in certain areas and certain fields, UNO comes to mind for me in that space. when they have a very strong reputational value of providing educational opportunities and strong skill development, particularly in like social work.
Mhm.
Um, so
Suno is,
Suno, I'm sorry.
but UNO has a strong reputation in business,
Right,
and so
exactly.
yeah,
I'm getting them flipped.
yeah,
Yeah, so that when a community can say we hired homegrown talent
hmm
that was educated here, so there's a certain level of knowledge that you have being educated in place. You're able to learn the lessons of the land, so to speak.
hmm
You're able to build the connections and the relationships. You have a whole lot of context because you went to school there, you lived there, you grew up there. And if you can be that homegrown talent and you come from an institution that has the reputation of cultivating homegrown talent, then you are a trusted. It's not an assumption, but it's highly likely that you are a trusted professional and knowledgeable about what your community needs and the work that your community needs to see done. And at least you have um, I think awareness. You have the
hmm
contextual awareness that you get from being homegrown, so to speak. Another part of that is people who come from somewhere else. So when I went to Hampton, I'm not from Hampton Roads, from North Carolina. Being a part of Hampton University, I had to learn how to navigate the Hampton Roads community. There are a lot of people who graduate from Hampton who end up becoming teachers in Hampton city schools. So they have settled down, put their roots down, and become a part of that community. It's kind of the responsibility, I believe, of the institution to foster that connection and to help
hmm
build that bridge, knowing that many students, when they go to college, that's where they're going to live, or that's where they decide to put down roots and build families and such. So I think their reputation does play a big part in that if your community doesn't feel like you're for them or they don't see how you prioritize them, then you have to work on that as an institution.
How does the size of the institution come into play with this? Because I'm thinking about a minority serving institution that has fewer than 5,000 students versus a majority institution, much more well resourced, that has, say, more than 10,000 students in the same community.
Mhm.
So, how do these types of institutions find their places as far as being anchors?
I think I believe that size and impact are not equivalents,
hmm
right? So there are some institutions that are larger in size, larger in scale, larger in assets. Ostensibly, they could do more, but they have limitations because they're so big. They can't operate at the granular level that some of the smaller institutions can. Then you have smaller institutions, may not have the resources, may not have the funding, may not have the student body or the student composition size, but they know their community. So they can use their voice, their advocacy, they can engage in a different way. And they have something that is really magically valuable, community trust. So that allows them to operate in a different way. So I don't think that size dictates the impact that you have. I think you have to be strategic in understanding what your capacity is and what you can do um, to make a significant impact. And then there's also the consideration of partnerships and how you collaborate. I teach classes all across sector collaboration and what is needed to effectively collaborate. You wouldn't believe the number of times that there are cases and there are scenarios where a city is endeavoring on a major initiative or project and or university as well, and they haven't brought any partners to the table to discuss like the neighborhood impacts or to discuss the community impacts. They haven't gone to their local elected officials to talk about kind of the policy impact. So you really have to bring folk to the table around this. I met with, I had the opportunity to talk to a former university president and of a relatively small institution, and brought up anchors, and they shared that, well, that's not our mission, that's not our purpose to be an anchor. And while it may not be your defined stated mission and purpose as a university, it may fall outside the scope of your 5 points on your vision statement. It's your responsibility, right? It's not, may not be your purpose, but it is your responsibility, because you are perhaps the longest standing institution in any given community. So whatever you do is going to impact the well-being of your community, and usually by extension of your alumni and the people who graduate from your institution. So talk to the higher ed leaders out there. If you, this might get me in trouble, but please invest energy in understanding the role that you can play in being a civic anchor, because it is critical. The cachet, the power, the leverage that you have is beyond that of any one individual, any one household. You have leadership responsibility over a whole institution that employs probably more than 40 to 100 people on a small scale, and thousands of people on a larger scale. So I really encourage leaders, academic leaders, to really, really think about that.
That makes me think of a really simple story. When I was working at one university, excuse me, where we were planning the homecoming parade. And I remember asking, I had just started working there, and I was asking folks on my team, hey, have we sent anything out to let folks know about the parade? And have we, and they just said, no, we haven't sent anything out because nobody comes. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, maybe nobody comes because we haven't sent anything out. And so, I just had a bit of a back and forth with them. And one of the things that I got from a couple of individuals was they didn't really value the local community that much. And my thing was, well, they're going to value us the more we take a step toward them and do things like say, hey, we have a parade coming on this date. We would love for you to come out and celebrate with us. Here is the map so that you aren't blocked into your driveway. And I was really thinking through a lot of that. And one of the things I thought, to your points, one of the things that I thought was, are we in a position where we have to repair a relationship with our neighbors, like the people within a 3-block radius of us? It concerned me a lot. It really concerned me, and so that came to mind immediately. So what that does bring up, though, is how people within the community may feel as a result about, as a result of these types of relationships. So how do you think the presence of an institution impacts individuals in the community? For example, how someone may feel personally influenced by a flagship institution, versus how they might respond to the community college in their town. They can proudly wear the t-shirt because the football team is doing well, or they can say, no, these people are here and we keep getting jobs out of these people, and I don't care who in the world doesn't know about this college. I love this college. Mm-hmm. How do you think what do you think the personal impact is for people when it comes to colleges and universities being civic anchors?
I think it's deep. Like, I think the personal impact is very deep. I think about as you're asking that question, I think about my own development of relationship and perspective on colleges and universities as a child.
Mm.
So my parents took me to those parades. Growing up in Winston-Salem State was right there. My brother went to North Carolina A&T. So we went to those parades. We went to the CIAA games. We went to activities at these universities, and we always knew somebody who worked at the school, whether they worked in facilities or whether they were a professor or what. We knew people who interacted or who were a part of the universities. And growing up as a kid, I just always assumed I was going to college. Like, and that's what I wanted to do. And it played a big role in shaping my perspective on the different types of educational opportunities, and thereby it produced a certain mindset in me in terms of career opportunity. And it just, what it gave me personally was this appreciation for learning that was really kind of expansive. So there's no limit to what I could learn, and therefore there are very few limits to what I can do and be. Right. So at a very personal level for little Halima, back in the day, the relationship and those institutions sharing with the community the parade routes was really important. I think about schools like NYU, where I did my graduate work, and we didn't have fences around the majority, if any, of the university. And at the time, the leadership there talked about how NYU was of New York. We are a part of New York. One of our academic buildings was a site of a historic tragedy, but they taught us about that and the impact that it had on the labor movement in New York City and workers' rights in New York City. So we were taught, well, we were socialized really and trained to understand that our institution was a part of the city. And that connection was deep. And so we didn't always get it right as an institution. You don't. But there was a willingness to hear from New York City. The unhoused population who lived in Washington Square Park were not. I did not witness them being largely criminalized at that point in time. The school made efforts to help and support people, and so I remember walking around through the park as a student, oftentimes seeing other students or faculty members playing chess with someone who I knew was unhoused, or they were. So those kinds of, we weren't afraid. We had those connections. So I think that's a part of the learning process for your students, when you can figure out how to navigate the complexities of your community and contribute to the community and have a relationship there. I think it impacts, just at a very individualized personal level, what the aspirations are, that people see for themselves in your community, in a specific community. Because if they're always being told, you're welcome here, you're a part of being here, we value you, we value what you bring to the table, then they're gonna walk in the room like they're welcome there, like they have something to contribute.
And we can't be what we are without you being
Exactly.
here.
Without you being here. Like, and a lot of schools, you talk about marketing, a lot of schools, they use location and place as one of their biggest marketing tools. Students that go to NYU, you see the Empire State Building. NYU is not really close to the Empire State Building when you look at the city, the main campus. But that's the iconic space. Right?
I was a little disappointed. I was like, "Where's the Empire State Building? I can't see it."
If you look like right up Fifth Avenue, you might. But like we use this iconography. Like when you look at some of the marketing materials for Tulane, you're likely going to see a parade, an umbrella. You're going to see something.
A streetcar.
Streetcar, beads.
Loyola and Tulane will always have a streetcar.
It's going to be a streetcar.
In the pitches. And UNO. We all do it.
We all do it.
Yeah.
And it's come to New Orleans. And those that place-based value is also being extended to specific disciplines. So one of the talking points I often hear about Tulane was part of its origins in studying in the yellow fever, studying yellow fever, and so that conversation gets extended to the role that we play in public health, the role that we play in medical research. When we talk about schools in Atlanta, a lot of times the conversation is very similar, but it's also around business development, it's around social movements, there are all these different things. So if you are an institution that is benefiting off of place and space, then again, you have to reciprocate that back to the place and space where you operate. So the impact is very deep, and the relationship should be as deep.
And in Loyola and Tulane's defense with the streetcars, they are on the streetcar
They are on the streetcar
line. So that
line.
makes sense.
Yes.
So let's look at the other side. We've talked about what institutions need to do. Now let's talk about what citizens need to do. So I feel some kind of way that XYZ college doesn't connect with me as a citizen. What can folks do to interact with their local colleges and universities so that they can establish that greater sense of personal pride, that greater sense of personal dignity and growth and development? What do citizens need to do?
Yes. So to answer that question, I'll tell another little Halima story.
Okay.
So my parents, and this was pre-internet, my parents oftentimes would look at the local newspaper to see what activities, what lectures, what panel discussions, what you talked about the arts earlier, what performances were happening at our local colleges and universities. They would go through newspaper, and that was like our Saturday activity to go to those events. That's what you can do. Find that, get on their mailing. Now we have the internet. So
you go to one thing, you will be on somebody's mailing list.
You'll be on the mailing list.
True. I used to be the person who made sure you got on the mailing list. Yeah.
Right. So you get on the distribution list. So sign up for their newsletters.
Yeah.
Sign up for, they have a lot of schools have these pre-college programs, or they have like summer activities and programs that kids who are in high school or different age levels can get involved in. We have the New Orleans Book Festival that has a big family day portion that's a part of it. Come out to those events. They're part of your community. You're paying taxes. You should show up, right? So be a part of those different activities and events. And that's a big step in the direction of getting involved and understanding really the resources that are at your fingertips by having those types of institutions, like literally in your back door, like in your backyard. So if you reach out to get that information, similar to how I encourage people, like when they move to any given city, get you a library card, get on the mailing list of your local library, because usually those activities are free. So go to those events, go to the events that are open at your local college and university. There are also some opportunities where you can get involved as a volunteer. So oftentimes universities will have these different committees that are dealing with various issues, challenges, studies, research, and they open up participation for community members. So get involved in those things. Reach out to faculty. We're busy, but because we're doing research and we're doing things, but it's worth it to reach out to a faculty member to say, hey, I'd like to know more about that article that you wrote. I'd like to know more about that study that you're conducting, and you can get their email very easily on the website. Don't be discouraged if you run into some folk who may not be as receptive. Just charge it to them. It's not you.
Yeah.
Don't be discouraged by that, but really understand the value of building a relationship and a connection to the institution itself. And I think you'll find that you get a lot out of it. There are a lot of free things that happen.
A lot of free things. Yeah.
I was so happy to see the event we went to at Dillard where
Robert F. Smith.
Yes, Robert F. Smith spoke at Dillard.
A billionaire sitting on a stage at Dillard, and the auditorium was half empty. I still don't get it.
But
I still don't get it.
There was a significant presence of non-Dillard affiliated people there,
which was the great part.
That was the great part.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm not blaming Dillard or Baldwin and Company.
Because Baldwin and Company co-sponsored.
They did their promotion.
Great job.
I am still flummoxed though that people were like, they didn't show up. So.
And we were joking. We were like, well, what if he put like $100 bill under every seat in here, and like we would have gotten all the $100 bills in our row.
So, Brother Smith, as you are a fellow alpha man, I'm disappointed. I felt all under that chair. I mean,
I reached like back under my chair. I was like, no, it's nothing.
And you got on a plane and went to Singapore. That's the best you could do for it. No, I'm joking. I am completely joking.
But it was a great event.
It was. But I'll tell you this. When I was working in marketing communications, there were people who did not hesitate to call the university and ask, why did y'all do this? Mm-hmm. Why are you not more involved in that? Mm-hmm. And I will also say that I interviewed for my WBLK radio show. I interviewed 12 presidents. Mm. Almost every single one of them said, just come see us. Mm. Don't be shy. Mm-hmm. Stop at the campus, ask if you can take a tour, and just come see us. Yeah. We're not going to bite. Just come see us. And you best believe that the admissions people, if they even smell a teenager anywhere around you, they are going to take you on that tour. Trust me on that. I'll just tell them I got a kid in high school. But don't lie. Don't do that.
Or so universities, they have this interesting thing called institutional advancement. And and they, the people who work in those spaces who are cultivating whatever their job is on a college campus. This could be your government relations office. This could be institutional advancement. This could be admissions. This could be some sort of public service initiative that the institution has. They are always looking for somebody to partner with, work with, invest in, support. So there's always we're always thinking, or we should be always thinking about how those interactions and connections happen. And it's really a gift when someone from your community shows up, or they call you and they say, hey, can I get coffee with you? Because I saw you on the news doing an interview and I want to learn more about your program. And I'm like, yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you about the program. You may not end up applying to my program, but you might know somebody, or you may, there may be an opportunity for us to support some work that you're doing. We have capstone project. We have a lot of different kind of connection points that we have with the community. So, at a foundational level, get involved with the programming that's happening on your local college campuses. Don't let Robert F. Smith put $100 bill under a chair and you not be there to get it. So.
Or you know what? And you're talking about people who are saying, people asking to go get coffee, or you invite someone to get coffee. You never know if you have someone from the community who is they may not have gone to college or anything like that, but you're an expert in your field, and you never know what kind of knowledge you're going to bless them with in that in that 1 hour sitting, because as I heard this all the time from professors who so used to their own knowledge and so used to their own expertise, they never knew when they were spreading some really, really good knowledge to somebody and how it impacted somebody, and how that person said, well, I may not go to college, but I know something. I heard something I've never heard before. And so, and that does speak to kind of kicking the door of the academy open and open wide the freedom gates of knowledge. So, all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Great segment.
Thank you.
You're really good at this.
Thank you.